The more time that passes, the less I feel like I fit in with the world around me. I'm starting to kind of understand how our parents probably felt when they invented video games and the internet, because the amount of technology that has infiltrated our lives is crazy. And it's only growing by the second. I mean, every single second, every single day, there is more and more technology that's being pumped into our lives, and it's only going to continue. And I'm starting to feel like the crotchety old man here, where I'm like, all this technology is going to destroy humanity. It's going to be the downfall of society. But this is coming from somebody who, for 20 years of my life, I lived and breathed technology. That was my entire career. I spent literally half my life working on some of the most advanced computer systems on the planet. And not just computer systems, I worked on simulation devices, all right, simulators. So these things were literally designed to create a simulated environment for the user that is as close to real life as you can possibly get. I'm talking VR and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I know my way around technology, and I love technology. I use it every single day, and I loved my job. That's why I stayed in it for 20 years, because what I was doing, number one, was very impactful, but I also loved it. So it's not like I hate technology and I'm anti-tech and I think that AI is bad and it's going to be the downfall of humanity. I actually do love technology, and I understand that it can be a very powerful tool if used properly. But the problem with technology today, I believe anyway, is that we're not using it properly. And I think that's going to get worse. And if you're not familiar, over the next 5 years, they're standing up tons and tons of AI data centers across the country. They're literally laying the foundation and the framework for AI. They're investing over $500 billion over the next 5 years in AI infrastructure. And that is because AI is going to proliferate. It's going to grow exponentially. So if you're not paying attention, understand and know that, because it's going to impact every single one of our lives. It's already impacting our lives in ways that we probably don't even know it. Our utility bills have risen. That's actually the main reason they've gone up, even though most people don't realize that. Most AI data centers that are installed actually end up using more electricity and water than the entire city that they're installed in. But this is not about the fact that AI data centers are driving up utility costs. This is about what it's doing to us as a society, and I would say what it's doing to us as people. So stop for a second and really think about how much technology has impacted your life and how much you rely on it. This is true for all of us, but think about our reliance on it and what we use it for. So we use it for everything. If you really think about it, we use it for our money, because what happens if the internet goes down? I mean, we've become so reliant on it as far as money goes and as far as our banking systems, that if we had a grid down scenario, pretty much none of us would have access to our money. Unless you have big stacks of cash hanging out at your house, if the grid goes down, we no longer have access to money. And that's just the way it is. I mean, that's how much technology has taken over. Think about all the stuff that you buy and how you buy it. How much do you actually use cash? For me, I use cash very rarely. I use my credit card to either buy stuff online or in the store. I use a card reader. So that's all the internet. That's all technology. We also use it for seemingly simple stuff that we don't even think about, like directions. Do you know how to read a map? Because probably most of the people in this country these days probably can't. And again, what happens if we lose GPS? What happens if the internet goes down? We suddenly lose our ability to navigate. It's probably not a good thing, especially if there's an emergency type situation. Then you're basically stuck trying to figure out how to get out of where you're at, along with a million other people. They're all on the same road. So essentially you end up going nowhere. We use it for entertainment. I think that goes without saying. You're watching this video, this is a form of entertainment. Streaming services, movies, TV shows, I mean, you name it. When it comes to entertainment, that's technology that we're relying on to get that entertainment. And it doesn't stop there. We also use it for education now. Think about the first place you go when you want to learn something. Very few of us read books anymore. If we want to learn something, we go to the internet. Most of the things I want to learn are just a click away, but now technology has also infiltrated our school systems, because when children go to school now, they're assigned an iPad or some form of technology, and that is what they learn from. So instead of having that human element that they are learning from and getting advice and wisdom from, they're now getting that from technology. And I would say that we become almost solely reliant on technology for any kind of information in general. Even modern day conveniences, we've become reliant on technology for. I mean, think about shopping. Think about your house, your HVAC system, your car. All these things have so much technology integrated into them that if we were to lose that technology, most of the things that we have in our daily lives would stop functioning. And I think it goes without saying that that is kind of a bad thing, because again, what happens if that service is interrupted? What happens if technology ceases to function? Where does that leave us? How many of us would actually be able to survive that kind of situation and get by and know what to do? I would say it's very few. And that's just talking about the technology that we have in our lives right now. Think about AI and the implications of that. I don't think any of us are ready for 2026 and beyond. I think our future is actually, at this point, almost something that we can't even conceive. I'm at the point right now where I can't even imagine what the future is going to look like, because things are moving so fast and everything's advancing so quickly. And I think there's probably a lot of y'all out there that kind of feel this way, because at this point we're kind of in uncharted territory. These are things that we haven't experienced yet, and we're all just trying to figure it out and navigate our way through these things. But it can be kind of tough, especially for people that are kind of old souls and that grew up in the generation that kind of knew the old world, and now everything's transitioned away from that. It can be pretty hard to adjust. But the more I think about this, the more I can't help but think about the impacts that this is going to have on society and people in general. And where my mind always goes when I think about this is how much this is impacting critical thought and our ability to think for ourselves, because I've already seen this in a lot of people around me. People are becoming very reliant on technology and now AI, and specifically AI. There are people out there that use AI for pretty much everything. They use it for critical thought. They use it to come up with ideas, and even more importantly, artwork and writing and things that I would say use more than just your mind. Because if you think about artwork and writing and actually creating something that is kind of meaningful to you, that comes from a place that is deeper than just your mind. It comes from your soul. It comes from your heart. So when you're giving that up and you're giving that to technology, you're essentially giving up your soul. You're giving up your spirit. You're handing that over to something that is an inanimate object that doesn't feel anything. And if you've ever read anything that comes from AI or listened to any of these AI voiceovers and stuff like that, you can kind of tell, because it's kind of soulless. There's no real heart to what you're hearing and seeing. It just feels kind of cold, and it feels unnatural. It feels artificial. And that makes sense because it's coming from an artificial entity. But I believe what is happening when we do that, when we give ourselves up, we give our spirit up and our soul and our heart, is it also makes us become very cold. We are handing over, again, a part of ourselves that is much deeper than just our mind and critical thought. We're handing over the part of us that makes us human. And when I think about that, I wonder, where does that leave us as a society? Are we all just going to become very cold and callous and robotic? Is that where all this ends? Are we going to lose our spiritual connection? And not just our spiritual connection to ourselves and the world around us, but our spiritual connection to other people. Because another thing I've been seeing a lot, this is kind of weird, but I get targeted ads from YouTube about find your AI girlfriend. All right, maybe it's because I've talked about relationships on this channel before, and you know, all the stuff that entails. Maybe it's kind of noticed that, and it's feeding me that kind of content. But it seems like the AI girlfriend thing is kind of taken off, and I've heard a lot of people actually talking about this, that there's a lot of people going that route, because as you probably know, men and women are kind of going their own way because there's a lot of division between the opposite sex right now. So people have resorted to finding AI companions. And to me, that is just strange. I mean, I don't really know any other way to describe that. It's just not natural. Because the problem here is that maybe you, as a person, can feel a spiritual connection to an inanimate object, something like artificial intelligence. But the problem is that that entity cannot reciprocate those feelings back towards you. It does not have a soul. It does not have a spirit. So you will never feel that spiritual connection reciprocated, which could create a very large void in your soul and in your heart, and could leave you feeling very empty inside. And if you really think about this, we've been trending in this direction for many, many years now, because how many people actually go out into the real world and approach a woman or approach the opposite sex and talk to them without having ever met them before? The answer to that is very few people, because most of us now rely on online dating. Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, whatever dating platform is out there now, that's where most people meet other people. Organic connection and relationships that are spawned out of spontaneous communication with someone else in the world around you is very, very rare these days. And again, with AI, it's only seeming to make that significantly worse. And if you really think about what this means for humanity, I would say that this is entering us into digital slavery. Because when you become that reliant on technology and you rely on it for things that, again, go much deeper than your mind and that start to tap into your spirit and your soul, then you suddenly go from using the technology to the technology using you. The technology is now harvesting you for information. It is now using you for input. You become a glorified data inputter. You give up all these fundamental aspects of yourself, these human aspects, you hand those over to AI or technology, and then you just input data for it. It then becomes your spirit and your heart, and then it starts to tell you what your heart desires. It starts to tell you what you should feel. And suddenly you no longer think for yourself. It does all the thinking for you. And that goes beyond just your mind, that goes into the spirit part as well. It creates the things that come from your soul, or the things that should come from your soul, on your behalf. You have now given up pretty much every aspect of yourself and handed that over to AI, and now it owns you. Instead of us owning it, it literally starts to own us, and that right there is digital slavery. And a lot of people will say, well, just turn it off. That's the way to escape this. But there's a major flaw in that logic, and the flaw is that if you turn it off, society collapses. Because like I talked about at the very beginning of this discussion, is that we've become so reliant on technology, if you turn it off, everything shuts down. The world as we know it would literally cease to exist in a matter of hours. It would be anarchy, it would be chaos. Everyone would be freaking out because people would lose access to their money. They wouldn't know how to get around. They wouldn't have access to food or water. They wouldn't have access to all their creature comforts or the internet or social media and all these things that we all rely on and are addicted to in our daily lives. That would disappear in an instant. And there are so many people that are very addicted to this stuff and that do rely so heavily on it that the world would just erupt in utter chaos, and it would literally be the downfall of society and humanity as we know it. That is the harsh reality of this, and that is the position we're in. And at this point, there's really no escaping that. That is just kind of the way things are going because of the way we're trending. And we're trending that direction because that is where our attention's at. That is where our money is spent. Our money is spent with technology. Our attention is there. So that's where everything's going. And that's why I believe it's fundamentally important not to reject technology and not use it in your life, because that's going to be kind of hard for pretty much anybody to do at this point in their lives. But the most important aspect to all this is to make sure that you're using it responsibly. But that's why the best way to combat this is to simply realize and understand what is happening. Because when you do that, then you can realize that the more of yourself you give up to technology and to AI, the more dominion it's going to have over you. And that's totally up to you whether or not you want these things to have dominion over you. That's going to be a very personal and individualized choice that each and every one of us has to make. But for those of us who want to preserve critical thought and creativity and the things that make us human, it's going to be very important to flex that creative muscle as often as possible. Do things that bring you joy. Do things that fulfill you. Do things that tap into your soul and into your spirit. And do things that come from your heart. Because the reality is, when you don't use these things, they atrophy. And that is true for our mind, our body, and our spirit. The less that we use them, the less that we need them, and the weaker they become. And when you think about our reliance on technology and us giving all these parts of ourselves away to it, that will cause us to atrophy, not only as individuals, but as a collective mind, as a collective society. And we're already seeing that. So if you don't want these things to have dominion over you, just make sure to get out there and create. Do something meaningful. Do something that lifts your spirit up and that grows you as a person. And it's possible to do this even if you choose to use AI. Just make sure that you're not using AI for everything. Make sure that there's still some sort of critical thought that goes into it. And maybe that means you're using critical thought and your creative abilities to create the script for AI so that it can create the thing that you've envisioned. Or maybe that means that you're doing your own artwork and you feed that artwork into AI so that it can optimize it and make it just a little bit better so that it stands out. Or maybe it means that you're writing from the heart and then you feed those writings into AI so that it can optimize that by restructuring it or changing the verbiage so that it sounds a little better. All these little things still allow you to use your creative abilities while not being completely reliant on AI and technology to think for you. And the way I see it, that's probably the best way to coexist with technology without becoming digital slaves to it. Use critical thought in our creative minds to come up with something from the heart and from the soul, and then feed that into AI and into technology and give it the permission to optimize and polish those ideas so that the best parts of ourselves can shine through.